Is it true that stress can make you gain weight? If you feel like you are super stressed and that is making you gain weight, it may not be entirely in your head. Today, we are going to talk about the science behind stress and weight gain, and we're also going to see ways to avoid that. Part 1, what actually happens in your body when you're stressed. So first thing that happens, a stressor is detected. It could be something physical, it could be something psychological, it could be linked to your environment. So through the amygdala, which is the kind of like emotional fear center of the brain, your brain is going to detect that stressor. Then it's going to send a signal to another part of the brain, the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is going to release a hormone that's going to travel to the pituitary gland, telling that pituitary gland to release another hormone that is then going to travel to your adrenal glands to release cortisol. And once cortisol is released, it's going to stimulate your liver in order to release glucose, because that's what you're going to need if you're going to need to flee from the predators causing you the stress, or at least that's what your brain thinks. So then you have high blood sugar, and insulin is secreted in response to that in order to get your blood sugar back down. So this was absolutely wonderful when we had predators, because we had the fight or flight response, and the cortisol was released in response to that in order to help us deal with the consequences of the stressful thing. But yeah, it's not great if your stressor is replying to an email or having a tight deadline or having a screaming kid. But since there's not going to be any physical threat in that situation, you're not going to be able to burn off any of this cortisol, and you're not really going to get that satisfaction as well, and like the endorphins and dopamine that you feel after doing something like really, really stressful on a physical level. And if you're dealing with chronic stress repeatedly, it can have some major issues, because if you're consistently secreting cortisol, and so that's consistently going to increase glucose and increase insulin, and so it can lead to an increased fat storage, especially around your organs. So the visceral fat, which is the one that is metabolically active and that is linked to higher rates of certain diseases. It can also be linked to insulin resistance, because your insulin is being triggered all the time in order to get the sugar into your cells, and so after a while you can become resistant, and it can lead to chronic inflammation as well, which is also linked to an increased storage of visceral fat, and so you're just fueling the negative outcomes. Part 2, how stress affects hunger hormones and cravings. Stress doesn't just affect your fat storage, it will also affect how hungry you feel and what you crave. Cortisol will increase ghrelin, which is the hormone that signals hunger, and it will decrease leptin, which is the hormone that signals fullness. So what could happen is, even if you're eating meals similar to when you were a little bit less stressed, they're not going to satisfy you as much, they're not going to fill you up, because your ghrelin is going to be higher and your leptin is going to be lower. So it's going to be hard for you to feel full from these same meals. And also from the stress, you're not going to be craving foods like some white fish and steamed veggies. You're going to be craving foods that are palatable, high in fat, high in carbs, high in sugar, because these foods are going to be boosting your dopamine levels and your serotonin levels, which is going to feel good because you're stressed, and so these feel-good hormones will keep you wanting more of these feel-good foods. Another thing that chronic stress will do is it will impact your sleep, probably going to decrease the amount of sleep you get, which again in turn is going to decrease your leptin and increase your ghrelin. And your lack of sleep will also reduce your prefrontal cortex activity, which helps control your impulses, and it will also increase your response from your amygdala, which is more linked to the emotional side of things. So you're more likely to eat more emotionally and to eat more impulsively. So now you're craving food that is more palatable, so probably higher in calories. You are less satisfied after eating, you feel hungrier, and your fullness doesn't quite come the same as before. You have increased fat storage, you're burning fewer calories, and you are just feeling not in control over your stress. Part 3, let's talk about the behavioral and emotional effects. So the effect of stress isn't just going to be biology, it's also going to affect the way that you behave around food. So for instance, if you're super anxious, you might not feel that you're able to eat, you might not feel hunger, and so you might skip a meal. And then when the stressful event passes, you may feel the need to binge in order to satisfy yourself emotionally and to kind of recover from that stressful emotion. Also, you might feel too drained and tired because you're super stressed to cook something that is healthy and balanced, and so you might resort to getting food delivered, for instance. When you're stressed, food can become a coping tool because you're gonna eat something that you like and it's going to offer immediate relief. And all of these examples aren't a lack of willpower, it's not a problem that you have, it's just a completely normal response. Your brain is just trying to self-soothe in a way that it knows that it has always done. It's very natural and instinctive for humans to self-soothe with food. And this is especially true if you grew up in an environment where you ended up associating rewards and food, and this is emotional conditioning around food. It's a positive reward loop where you feel stressed and so you turn to food to relieve the stress, and your body gets a hit of dopamine and serotonin, and it's very happy about your decision to eat the food, and so it will continue to push that onto you whenever the stress arises. But the main problem is if you try to correct everything that we talked about, the stress and the stress response, the subsequent weight gain linked to stress, then you're probably going to do it in a way that's going to be even more stressful for your body. If you find yourself gaining weight because of stress and your response is to start skipping meals, start cutting calories, and eating less carbs, you're only increasing your body's stress, and that's only fueling the stress response. Because what happens is, so you're gonna feel the stress and you're gonna be scared of gaining weight because of it, so you're going to start eating less and restricting, but then after a while this is going to lead to binging, and so then you're gonna feel super bad about that, and so you're gonna decide to restrict even more, and therefore it's gonna be harder and harder to cut your calories and eat less, and so you're gonna binge again, and then there's gonna be more and more guilt, which is gonna cause you to restrict even more and be even more stressed. All of this will just fuel a negative stress loop where you feel stress, and so kind of naturally you stress eat, and then you start to feel guilty about that, and you're like, wait, I don't want this, I want to lose weight, I want to counteract this, let me restrict. So you start restricting a lot, but then after a while you can't restrict anymore, so something happens, you snap and you binge, and then you feel even more stressed for binging, and so you want to restrict even more, and the cycle is just not good. So how can you actually protect your body from all this stress-related weight gain? So probably the most important takeaway from this video is that if you are constantly stressed about being stressed, and if you are too hard on yourself because of the stress that you're going through, and if you're only focusing on the fact that this stress is going to cause you to gain weight, it's only going to make you more stressed, and it's only going to further the weight gain. And this is why I don't like to answer a blatant yes if people ask me, oh, can stress make me gain weight? Because usually, yes, like we've seen, there's a response to cortisol, but it's only a beginning of a response that can be countered. And instead, what most people do is they feed it even more. They're going to be stressed because of the stress, because of the weight gain potentially, and they are going to make bad decision after bad decision. So here's how to not do that. First, let's get this out of the way. If you are able to remove your stressor, that is the best solution. Of course, if your stressor is, your baby, kind of hard to remove. But if your stressor is that you don't like your current apartment because it's uncomfortable, maybe moving is going to be a bigger stress in the moment, but if you look long term, it's actually going to decrease your stress. But let's assume for the sake of this video that you can't remove your stressor. Here are some tips to reduce the impact of stress on your body. And the first and most important thing to do related to the weight gain that you may have with the stress is you need to eat fully balanced meals that are filling and that support your body. It's really good if you eat pretty regularly, maybe 3 meals, 1 snack every 4 to 5 hours in order to bring your body some regular energy to kind of counter the glucose spikes. Make sure that you're getting enough protein, enough fiber, enough healthy fats, again, so the insulin spikes aren't as bad. You can also add in some magnesium-rich foods, which have been shown to actually technically reduce stress. Things like spinach or pumpkin seeds or bananas or dark chocolate. And you can also try to reduce caffeine. I know, not super fun, but caffeine will stimulate cortisol production, and also alcohol. You just can't go wrong with reducing alcohol. Number 2, you can use lifestyle tools to help lower your cortisol. First of all, sleep, of course. If you're able to sleep, then that is going to be super helpful in decreasing your cortisol. And if you are very stressed, so stressed that you feel like you can't fall asleep, you can't sleep well, at least spend more time in bed to try to kind of compensate that. I honestly don't sleep well, so I try to compensate by staying in bed a decent amount of time. And by staying in bed, I mean I'm lying down, my eyes are closed, I'm trying to fall asleep, I'm thinking of nice thoughts, and I know that even if I'm not actually sleeping, I'm still resting. Movement is very helpful as well. If you can do some gentle exercise that you enjoy, even if you're only able to do like 20 minutes a few times a week, that still counts. But make sure that you're not doing too intense exercise that can actually increase cortisol. Breath work can also be really good. There are great ways that exist to regulate your nervous system. I just recommend going online, going on YouTube, finding videos of people giving you methods to relax, meditation even, but just breathing works really well. There are some quick exercises, quick breathing techniques that you can do that will immediately lower your stress response and get your body out of the fight or flight mode. And nature exposure is actually another thing that has been proven by science to reduce stress. Just 10 minutes spent in nature. If you're just walking around a park, or even better, if you live in the countryside, being in nature, grounding yourself, breathing around nature, listening to the sounds of nature, that can really help. Number 3, create emotional safety around food. Don't shame yourself for stress eating. This will just add fuel to the fire. If you're constantly stressing over your weight, that will spike your cortisol. Like we talked about earlier, this will lead to storing more fat, and you're going to have glucose spikes, insulin spikes, and it's just not going to be good. The best thing you can do to prevent this is to reframe your thoughts. Give yourself permission to eat all foods, because if you're having less guilt, then there's going to be less stress, and so your stress response is going to be lowered. I made a whole video to help you get out of food guilt if you're interested, and just let yourself eat all and any type of food, and you can check it out here or in the description. Shifting the narrative around weight and weight loss is also very important. Instead of being stressed because you're not losing weight, reframe it and tell yourself that actually you are doing everything you can in order to support being healthy. You're building healthy eating habits, you're eating healthy balanced meals, you're not restricting too much, you're allowing yourself to eat foods that you actually enjoy. All of this supports a healthy, less stressed body. Getting into body neutrality is also helpful. Instead of focusing on your weight, and what you look like. Try to focus on all the other things that your body can do and all the positive things that you're able to do in your life. You can also set boundaries with certain triggers, like if you're following people on social media that tend to promote diet culture, any type of diet messaging around you. I would also turn towards more diverse coping strategies if you struggle with emotional eating, like stress eating. And these strategies shouldn't be just food. There are a bunch of things you can do. You can journal, you can listen to music, play music, go for walks, walk your pets, or just like play with your pets, teach them tricks, call your friends, your family, watch a movie, read a book, walk in nature. Anything like knitting or crocheting or like making puzzles or arts and craft as well will engage your fingers. There's going to be this like tactile expression, and then also your mind. It will help you kind of release any type of tension that you have. This is a very personal thing. Different things work for different people, so I really encourage you to try to find what works for you. And I have a whole video on how to stop emotional eating. If you're interested, you can check it out here or in the description. And of course, don't hesitate to consider therapy if you feel like this is too hard for you to get through on your own. So yes, technically stress can make you gain weight, but remember that it's not going to be anything huge and that there are ways to counter that. And the ways in which you deal with the stress are going to be more important than having that stress. Remember that your body is only trying to support you and you shouldn't punish it for that. You should only try to protect it and work with it, not against it. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye.